It's often easy to tell what kind of game a developer is angling for when you first see gameplay for it. And then there are games like Redfall. Many people assumed what this game was going to be, a simple Back 4 Blood clone which switches out zombies for vampires. But as more information comes out for the game, the more we seem to be peering into something much more special or bigger than we originally thought. Now, thanks to an in-depth interview with Arkane Austin's studio director Harvey Smith and creative director Ricardo Bear, courtesy of Games Radar, we get substantive information that lends credence to the notion that there is more to the game than meets the eye. If you have played or followed the studio's previous works, Prey, Dishonored and Deathloop, you will know that despite being different games, it's easy to tell that it's an Arkane Austin game. Redfall, however, represents a bit of a departure from that formula, or broadening of it, by truly going open world. It's interesting to note what the studio director says about what Redfall means for the studio. It's certainly true that if you work on the same thing for long enough, you will eventually want to clear your head and stretch a little. Maybe we stretched too much this time. We probably should have picked either an open world or cooperative multiplayer. But if Redfall comes together at the quality level we think it will, then it will be a different beast. Essentially, Smith is talking about the scope of the game and the depth within it. When he talks about the quality level, he's alluding to the depth of gameplay in a game that is both an open world and cooperative game. Ricardo Bear's quick to point out that this is not a game like Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood. Whilst Redfall features 4 playable characters with co-op play where you can kill the undead, the similarities end there. Interestingly, he says Redfall is more like Far Cry, but not just any Far Cry game, but Far Cry 2 in particular. Arguably, Far Cry 2 has the most organic open world compared to the later iterations that followed. Those later Far Cry games are built upon what many have dubbed the Ubisoft formula. This refers to an open world game which ends up feeling somewhat hollow, strewn in with a multitude of quests and missions in a manner which feels like a checklist exercise. Smith goes on to describe the flow of Redfall as follows. You'll want to see if you can get into a barn you found, climb a fire, look at a tower that you spotted in the distance, or try and get into a house to read all the notes scattered inside. Some of Redfall's most powerful moments come from wandering around, absorbing the world and getting caught up in the high action for a moment. That was the atmosphere we set out to create from the beginning. If Redfall can deliver a memorable open world, then this would really elevate the game beyond a lot of expectations and serving to enhance the rest of the experience. We now know that the game has different times of day and that the gameplay changes radically depending on whether it's sunrise or sunset. One thing that this interview confirmed to me is that Arkane designed this game primarily to be played cooperatively. Yes, the game permits a lone player to complete it, but it's obvious from the manner in which Smith describes the co-op that this will be the best way to experience the game. He says, "What you get in exchange is tremendous. When 4 people sit down to play through Redfall together, they are synergizing their powers, aiding each other and kicking off emergent events. It brings tremendous value." And if you still had any doubt about the co-op focus, the game literally gives you a buff for playing cooperatively, as well as depending on what hero combinations you utilize. The combat rewards players for combining heroes' powers. Typically, Arkane Austin's games aren't known for having solid gunplay. Dishonored had a very unique combat system, but Redfall relies heavily on traditional gunplay in modern first-person shooters. It's a good thing then that none other than id Software, the people who worked on the latest Doom games, assisted with the combat design. It's not just how the gunplay feels that appears promising, but also the weapon system itself. Standard guns you find around the world will have random modifiers, so guns behave differently. Smith says that you as a player will end up looking at the traits of each weapon you find and deciding if that's what you really want. An example was given of 2 double-barrel shotguns, one with a greater chance of setting hazards on fire and the other having more range, but also a chance of letting off a UV flash to petrify vampires. I personally only expected basic weapon classes with simple upgrade parts, but if this system works well, finding weapons with the best modifiers will be something players will be actively seeking to do. that would add a further layer to the proceedings. There are also other unique vampire hunting weapons such as UV beams, stake launchers and more. I think the early comparisons for Left 4 Dead have actually helped in the long run by tempering expectations for Redfall. When we first had a glimpse at the gameplay, many, including me, were pleasantly surprised at what was shown. Reading more into the finer details of the game shows the potential for one that could leave a much longer lasting impression. If the core game mechanics and the game world are robust enough to make future content an exciting prospect, then we could have something a lot more special here. It's all dependent on how flexible Arkane Austin can be. I guess we will see when the game gets an in-depth reveal at the Xbox and Bethesda Developer Direct on 25th of January. So do you think Redfall has a chance to surprise? Do you think it has the potential to be a long-term proposition for Xbox? Do let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.